So we're breaking free. We set our intentions for the new year, and hopefully we set our intentions, and often I've been talking to some people, and some people don't set intentions because my goals don't happen, or I give up a day later, a week later, a month later. It doesn't work, so I don't bother. And I thought, well, that's a shame, because for me, I've decided in my own head that New Year's and 4th of July should be our two biggest holidays in New Thought, in our spiritual journey, because our spiritual journey is about breaking free. Our fundamental principle is that love is all that there is, peace, harmony, that God is all there is. It is always there. We don't have to make any of the good happen. All the good that we could ever want, hope, or dream for is always there. Our only job is to release all the blocks, all the dust and the grit of the journey that blocks this always already present love. So when we are stepping forth and setting a new intention, what we're doing is we're releasing all those blocks. We're stepping into our always already perfective self, which is what New Year's is about, which is what the 4th of July is about, the Declaration of Independence, that we all have this right to pursue happiness. We all have the right to pursue our divine inheritance, to know who and what we really are. And so that is why we come together as a community, is to support each other in knowing who and what we are. So a big part of what I want to talk about today is community and the power of community, how we can serve one another as we're going on these intentions, as we are wanting to become more of what we are. And I was sharing with this Beth a little bit earlier. One of the reasons I didn't put anything about community in the title of the talk is because when I was first a minister, I did a month series all on community. And it was all about creating community, being a part of community. And for that month, it was our lowest attendance, lowest amount of people showed up and supported, and nobody seemed very excited about it. So now I'm a little hesitant to put it in my title. And I was thinking about why is that? Why we are individualists. Many people have come from a very strong, central, organized religion that felt limiting and confining. And so one of our great freedoms was breaking free from that limitation and the confines of a organization that told us what to think, told us how to behave, and if we didn't do these certain things, we were going to hell or we were bad people. And so to become part of a community and really take that seriously can feel to our hearts and our souls constricting rather than expanding. It can feel like, oh no, I can't be my individual self. I have to hide certain parts of myself. I think I mentioned a few weeks ago, a friend of mine, when I was at Oakland Center for Spiritual Living, the way we met was he first came up to me and he said, I just need to know, can I disagree with people and come here and still come here? That was a big concern because his understanding of organization or communities that everybody had to agree. Everybody had to see things the same way. That is not what this community is about. This community is about, as we have in our purpose statement, is each and every one of us being our unique selves, having completely different styles. We can have different perspectives. We can have different points of view. We are a less politically vibrant or intense community. When I was in the Washington, D.C. area, it was very political. Everything was political. And what I loved about our community is we had passionate people who were Republicans, high in the Republican administration working with Bush, and then we had passionate Democrats who believed strongly in their values, and I thought, wow, this is incredible that we can all be in one community under oneness, and we know our differences and still see beyond our political views. They always say, don't talk about politics because that separates, but we have to know that God is in all. God is equally in Republicans and Democrats, that God is all perspectives. God is infinite. God doesn't take sides, and yet there is a truth that emerges out, what's it Rumi says, out in the field beyond right doing and wrong doing is the field of love, and I'll meet you there. That there's something beyond all these perspectives, beyond all these opinions. As Buddha said, people with opinions just go around bothering one another. So we are allowed to have our opinions, we're allowed to have our point of views, but we're not allowed to limit other people their point of views. That's the essence and energy of what community, the highest vision of community is. That's why I was saying New Year's, and to me 4th of July could be our really big holidays, where we really start celebrating our freedom and our equality. Our equality is a big part of that, knowing that we all have different roles to play in our families, in our community, but all those roles are essential. This became really important to me because, as I've mentioned many times, I used to watch the news. I watched the news every single night of my life until I was 18, overwhelmed by the suffering of the world, wanted to help, worked with juvenile delinquents for 2 years when I was in college. I was very interested in criminal psychology, so that's really where I was focused. And I wanted to rehabilitate, be a part of that process that helped teenagers rehabilitate to a life of wholeness and health. And what I found in working with these teens, and it was anywhere from theft to murder, we had the whole range, and it was a 6-month halfway. They had been in a juvenile delinquent home, and this was a halfway home before they came out into the community. And I would meet one-on-one with them, and they would be raw. They had no trouble sharing who they were, and their nightmare stories often of their childhood. And my heart would just go with so much compassion and all this love and compassion I feel for them. And then we would come out of that room where it's just the two of us, and then they would hang out with their friends and become very violent and angry in their conversation. And that was the challenge that I had, which is a 6-month program isn't going to change a childhood of horrors. And I want them to be loved and supported, and at the same time, I don't want them to go out and take that head full of horrors and bring more horror out into the world. So there was a place of, there needs to be restraining, but what can actually help? I was also interested in child development, because that's what, when things go awry, is what creates these horrors. And I thought, and I was very interested in psychologically, how can we change things? And I remember being in a child development class, and the professor saying, children have a very flexible sense of self up until about age 7. And then by age 7, this sense of identity, this self of who they are in the world. Bless you. There's Kleenex over here somewhere if you need one. Can you throw one up, Tris? Who they are gets really solidified, and it's almost unmoving. And of course, this is very terrifying for me to hear that. And I raised my hand and said, well, how are you so sure about that? And he said, because I work with children. I work with them all day long, and I see no matter what their trauma of when they were children, if I catch them before 7, they can really shift how they feel about themselves. But after 7, there's just this something that locks in them. This is who I am in the world. And they have a strong sense of, this is how I see myself in the world. I didn't like that answer, and I didn't believe that I believe in God. All things are possible. So, but then, as much as I believe that, and then working in the halfway home, and I just thought, wow, this is really, it's more than just showing people love for 6 months. I mean, what is it going to take? And to shift, and that's when I learned that the psychological world goes so far. And I discovered New Thought, and I remember walking into a New Thought church for my first time, and the minister was saying, well, there is that which in every human being that is whole, perfect, and complete, that has never been harmed, that has never been endangered, that is pure, that is loving, and we don't need to do anything to make that happen. We all have it. And it was just this huge sense of relief that our core sense, our sense of egoic self is not who we really are, that our spiritual self, our soul self is who we are, and that's what really pushed me onto the spiritual journey. And then I started learning, working on the spiritual principles, worked in a psychiatric hospital, and I was using those spiritual principles while I worked in the hospital, when I worked with the patients, see the wholeness and the perfection, and it was, sometimes it was very frustrating. It seemed like it had no impact whatsoever to bring these spiritual practices. Sometimes I felt safe enough with some of the people to talk about it out loud if I felt they were receptive, and sometimes there were instant miracles. But more than enough, it didn't feel like there was any headway happening. And that was frustrating. There are times, though, and this is for all of us, because all of us bring light, and we don't know it. I just got a Facebook message just a couple weeks ago from a young woman who had been a teen on one of the units I worked in. And she said, I just wanted to reach out to you and let you know how much what you shared with me helped me and how I still use your tools, and it's impacted my life. And I wanted to let you know that all these years later, I still am grateful and use it. And she actually goes to a Unity church where she lives. So who knew? Who knew? And we don't know when we're impacting someone, and that was very gratifying to me. However, are you all familiar with that story about the starfish, all the 10,000 starfish that get onto the beach? So it's a story that people like to tell. So what is it when they get beached or washed ashore? All these 10,000 starfish just got washed ashore, and someone's walking along, and they're just overwhelmed by the amount of starfish that are going to die. And they say, oh, we can't, there's nothing we can do. And the person next to them picks up one starfish, throws it out to the ocean, and said, you can make a difference to that one that you were able to throw back into the ocean. And everyone goes, oh, that's beautiful, and everyone loves that story. I hated that story. Because I was never satisfied with one. I'm like, come on, there's 10,000. One is just not okay. And that's what I started to feel when I was doing the work at the psychiatric hospital. Yeah, I was helping of one or two. I was connecting. I'm not saying I wasn't of service, but I was service not nearly to the extent that I wanted to be. And I was working at the time when the insurance was changing dramatically for the worse, so patients were now staying shorter periods of time, getting less help, which was incredibly frustrating. So we had this incredible quick turnover rate. And then I just saw, oh my gosh, these are, again, like the juvenile delinquents, they're just such serious problems, and we're trying to put Band-Aids and quick fixes. And I thought, what can we do to really make a change? And that's when I was working in a psychiatric hospital, and that's when I started working at Agape. I shifted, because I thought, if we're going to really make a change on the planet, because I don't want to help one person. And I don't mean me, Harriet, I mean all of us, to shift to a place of heaven and not have that just be rhetoric or just a nice concept, but actually, if that's a reality, how would that work? And I thought, well, spiritual communities, people who are committed to waking up, to becoming these beings of light, we need the tipping point. You all know about the tipping point, that a certain amount of people wake up, it takes everybody with them. So rather, I thought, well, we can continue, do the service work, and we need to become part of groups, of communities that create this vortex of energy. We've talked about in December time vortexes and space vortex, but there's people vortex, there's community vortex, that when people walk in, their hearts start to open, things start to shift. I remember when I was at Agape, there was a gentleman who was in my group, in my pod for classes, and he never came to services. He only went to classes, and he was hilarious. He was from New Jersey, and he would never talk. He would just sit there in class. But once in a while, in our group, and once in a while, I just, okay, well, I just got to say this. So I come from New Jersey, and he had two choices in New Jersey. You could either become part of the mafia or a trucker. So I don't want to do either one, but I'm used to fighting. And I have a hard time here because I'm used to fighting, and here I feel like my body is bruised with love. And we just all, he says, I don't know how to take all this love that comes here. It almost hurts in my body to feel it. That's a vortex of the energy and power of community, of what community love, just someone walking into that energy, and they know something's different, and it may not be even comfortable to them, all this love. I remember someone said, oh, it's all about love. I want to get back to the fear. I'm more comfortable in that. That's familiar. All this love is terrifying. But it has an energy and it has a vibration. So as we're looking at our new year, first of all, we want to look at our intentions. And our intentions aren't just about who we are in December. It's who we are right now in this moment, to not always be living for the future, because God only exists in the present tense. So whatever intentions you made for this year, they're real. Whatever blocks that came up, it's okay. We are here to support each other through those blocks, not give up. And it's all happening now in this moment. We are becoming that intention. We are fulfilling our intentions for the new year today. The power of community. So I said our book of the month So for me, community and people waking up has become a passion, because this is how we're going to get to the tipping point. Our communities all over this planet meeting and growing, in not just individually but collectively, that we actually grow faster when we are around other people who are doing work. It accelerates the growth. So our book of the month is Sacred Hoops by Phil Jackson. How many people have read the book? Yeah. Yes. So she said she saw the interview on Oprah. So Phil Jackson is Jeff reminded me that did you raise your hand, by the way? Did you read Sacred Hoops? Not that one, but he knows, he's very familiar with Phil Jackson. And he's won 11 NBA championships. Is that the most ever for a coach? Any coach ever? Of all sports, or just of all sports? So this guy knows how to win. His book, he's written a lot of books, but this particular book, Sacred Hoops, is about him applying spiritual principles to a team for it to become more effective. And so he wrote it after the 3 wins of the NBA of the Chicago Bulls. Like I have mentioned, Michael Jordan has never won, as brilliant as he is, godlike as he has never won a basketball championship except when Phil Jackson was the coach. So why would that be? Why was this team so successful? One of the things he really harps on is equality, that everybody on the team is equally in importance. There are people who are more talented, who may have more gifts, but that doesn't make them more important. And he had to shift the culture of superstardom to everyone matters. Because what he found was that even the fellow players of Michael Jordan on his team would worship him. They'd be afraid to get too close to him. They'd be afraid to challenge him. They'd be afraid to, or they just sort of step back in awe, like all of us watching. They were just as in awe of him as everyone else. So he had to help people get beyond that with Michael Jordan and say, everyone here, even the guy sitting on the bench, is essential, and he changed the culture to oneness. It's beautiful to read his book and how much he emphasizes oneness. We are all one. We all have different roles. We all have different talents. Some people can put their leg over their head, those yoga gurus. Some people play music. Some people have incredible, when they walk in the room, they light it up. Some people are very deep and inward and have this incredible gift to share from this depth of place. Everybody has something different that we're offering, but every person is essential. And so I think, this is true in spiritual communities, to be aware of this on several levels. We all have an ego. I have an ego. Everyone here has an ego. The ego often, because it doesn't feel enough, wants to feel better than. So it subtly shows up. I've never been in a spiritual community where egos don't show up. We can't help it because we all have egos. So it's learning how to have those parts of ourselves, the spiritual part of us that knows oneness, and then the part of us that wants to feel important or feel valued or feel seen or feel recognized, to show up and be a little bit brighter so I'll be seen or being valued. It shows up in different ways. We want to start seeing everybody in the community as worthy, no matter how they're showing up, whether they're quiet and sit in the corner and don't say much, or whether they're one of the ones who like to be out there. That everyone matters in the community. We start holding this as a value, that everyone in our community matters, that even the minister is no higher or above anybody else. Traditionally, in the church organization, the minister, the leadership had a sense, I think it comes from the days of the Pope. Well, I guess the Pope's still around. He doesn't hold much space in my head, but the idea of a pope being sort of closer to God, or a king and queen being closer to God than everybody else, we've shifted from that. We know that God is in, through, and as all of us equally. There's no one closer to God. There's nobody closer to God than us, everyone here in this room. It doesn't matter how it's showing up. We all have this divine intimacy. So that starts to shape our understanding of how to do community differently. It's not all about the minister knows more or has greater access to God than anybody else. So I think this has actually been a challenge as we've evolved spiritual community. How do we all interact? What's the purpose? How do we see these different the roles that we play? I have a colleague, Mark Anthony Lord, who started the Bodhi Center for Spiritual Living in Chicago. He has since left, but he's developed, it's a beautiful spiritual community. And they started small and grew. But he had the problem that happens often with ministry, is that he was just feeling entirely burned out, felt like he was doing everything. And he said there was just this gentleman who came in, was done with the fundamentalist Christian philosophy, but brought some of the gifts that he had learned from their big church. And one of the things that he brought to Mark was, intimately, we can't really care about big groups of people. That 10 people, somehow they came up with this number that there seems to be about 10 people that we can really spend a lot of time with and care and hear about their life and support them and find about what their intentions are for the year and how we can support them when they hit those blocks or when they want to quit or when life is overwhelming. How can we support them? How can we celebrate with them? How enjoy on birthdays and big celebrations? That we have a capacity to really only do that for 10 people. So what they started to do was create circles of 10 within their community. And they were very, very clear with the boundaries that it can never be more than 10 people. I think it's interesting, was it basketball, 12 people? A basketball team? Yeah, so that was 12 people. So it's sort of an interesting thing. Because Phil Jackson talks a lot about that in his book, creating a family environment that we tend to perform better and do better when we have that really strong sense of connection with the people that we're wanting to wake up with. And so we take those, so they had this group of 10 people, and here's another interesting part. We're not ready, we don't have this many people yet, but it's to start setting that in. I love this model, so it's just setting that intention. Each group came together based on a passion that they had about community. So the people who really wanted youth church to work really well, it would be the 10 people that really wanted to focus on youth church. There would be people around music, people who want to make Sunday service really powerful, people who want to do the money and really care. So it's where their passions and their skills lie, and so you're meeting people with different styles of personality. They're may not be people that you would normally be drawn to, but accept through this passion. And those became your people. And those became the people that they would support and nurture. So they were both supporting their own spiritual growth and being of service to the community. So suddenly they had a community full of people who were being nurtured, who were caring for one another, and were giving service and creating the community. And it was interesting. He said he, as a minister, had to go through such a huge shift because he said, I almost started to feel irrelevant because it became a community that was taking ownership that this is our community. And I've been thinking about that and with Phil Jackson and his book, and I'm thinking, well, you still need a coach, but the coach isn't the same as the players. If a community is going to be strong and thriving and caring and passionate about waking up, about supporting and loving one another, and what we are in the community, it's the people. It's not the minister. We've changed. We still have, in fact, that's one of my pet peeves. We have these first we had the superstar Jesus and Buddha. We always talk about Jesus and Buddha. They were first superstar. We're in awe of them, and we just sit and watch what they do, and maybe they'll bless us with their blessing. So we've shifted past that. But now I've noticed in the spiritual but not religious world, we definitely have our superstars, the Deepak Chopra, the Neil Donald Walsh, Marianne Williamson, the people, Jean Houston, Barbara Marx Hubbard. There's just this group of people that you see everywhere, and they're in every video and every talk show, and they become Oprah. They become so they become the superstars, and that's great. Michael Jordan is a brilliant player. LeBron James is a brilliant player. But we're all essential. We can't give our power over to other people and watch them play and be in awe and be afraid of them. We have to stand and own our own gifts and our own power. That's what community is about. It is not about the superstars, although there may be superstars in the community. It's about everybody in our circle, and everyone in our tribe matters. Nobody gets left out. Nobody gets rejected. Nobody says you're not enough. I always love that story with Jesus where just one sheep goes off and he leaves all the other sheep to get that one sheep. Everyone matters. That's the energy of pure unconditional love. Everyone is part of a group that matters to them. Everyone's going to show up differently. An introvert's going to show up differently than an extrovert, but everyone is accepted for who they are. Everyone is equal. also part of our Declaration of Independence. I'm going to make this a holiday, dang it. Everyone's equal. We all have different roles, we all have different talents, but everyone's equal. So that's he calls it the meta model. So I'm hoping as we develop and grow that we start bringing that into our community, these circles of care. It takes time logistically. How do you do it? How do you facilitate it? If he goes home, how do you meet? Blah, blah, blah. So it takes work, but it can set the intention of what real community is. There's another aspect of community that has bothered me about being in the spiritual community, and that I really loved when I was reading. I was thinking about a lot as I was reading Sacred Hoops. The team has a purpose greater than itself. So in the case of NBA basketball, their greater purpose is to win the game. They're all coming together for something greater than themselves. And I think that's a really important part. I grew up in the United Church of Christ, which was very focused on changing the external world. There was very little personal growth. We want to change the systems, and I really value that, but there wasn't the inner awakening. That's why I love New Thought, where the world reflects who we are. So we're doing this spiritual growth. We're helping each other wake up. But I've also found being in spiritual community in these personal growth areas is that we get very, it's not incestuous, but it's that idea that we're only about our community. We're only about having a community where we have great potlucks and we have fun and we play together as a community, but sometimes we get so involved in who we are that we forget that there's a world out there. I mean, we bring it out into the world, but not not as a community. So I've been being with that because that's been a longing that I have. Let's say we have groups of 10. Each group of 10 is committed to something bigger than themselves by serving the community. But what about the community? Who are we? And I've talked about eventually I wanted to talk about who we are, what cause are we committed to? Are we going to be committed to the homelessness in Livermore? Or are we going to be caused to domestic violence? Or what's that cause? And I've been with that. But we're a spiritual community first and foremost. And we are a spiritual community first and foremost. So then how you get those insights just as you're waking up. And I had this insight, and it's just gotten me just like, this is it. So I'm not saying this is it because I'm just one person, but we'll grow. You'll all grow to agree with me soon. Hey, you need a coach, right? So are you familiar with Transcendental Meditation? There's a group, TM, and they're located in Iowa. But what I love about this group, it was my first technique, but it's not my technique anymore. But I love what they do bring is a lot of testing and research about what the difference a group of meditators make. So they did this test. Some of you may be more familiar with it than it's been a while since I read about it, but they were meditating around D.C. for, I think it was 6 months to a year. Do you remember this? And they were meditating on a regular basis, and the crime rate went dramatically down during this period. So they'd been testing about the impact of spiritual practice on community. So they didn't go out and try to change criminals. They just brought the energy, shifted the energy. So I was thinking, well, we believe in the power of prayer, the power of the word. We're meditating with our classes, visioning and Zen meditation, but the power of the word. And what if, as a community, we all started making the commitment? Also, before I say this, because there's going to be the circle of concern. Are you all familiar with Stephen Covey's book, Circle of Concern? That, in fact, he says one of the biggest problems when people try to make change, they try to do too big, too much, too fast. That the place to start is just within your circle of concern. Just focus on that. And in that area, and then it will start to grow on its own. So Gandhi's a perfect example. When he first started nonviolence, he was in South Africa. He just started within his own community. He wasn't a big grand leader. He was just trying to work these principles of nonviolence within his own community that he was living in, where he was experiencing injustice. And as he continued to work on it, the circle of influence grows. It starts to grow out naturally, not because we're forcing it. And it started to have more impact on the country of South Africa, to the point where India, 20 years later, mind you, came and said, we would love to have your help, and they brought him to India. And from all that work he was doing in South Africa, the energy and the vibration was big enough to create a big movement in India and have the British Empire leave in a nonviolent way. He didn't start off trying to get rid of the British Empire. He started with his circle of influence. So with that in mind, I was thinking if we just focus on Livermore Valley, just to start with our circle of influence, and we commit as a community to pray every day for the highest good of everyone in this community. So for the people who are going through abuse, are finding love. For the people who cannot eat, that they find food. For people who cannot find shelter, that they find shelter. For people who are in any sort of blocked way, prosperity, health, wholeness, peace, that they discover that every person in this community knows they are loved and can experience that love in a tangible way, that all the animals are blessed in this community. Nature is blessed. The air is blessed. That we hold in prayer every day as a community the truth, the absolute truth of what the essence of Livermore is, this space called Livermore. And we just hold into that. And then we meet once a week. For half an hour in the group, whoever shows up, everyone is invited, and for half an hour we pray collectively for the highest good of Livermore. And we do that for 1 year. And we just say, so as a community, as a spiritual community, Centers for Spiritual Living, being a lighthouse to Livermore, how can we be a blessing? If we just hold it in prayer daily and as a community weekly and see if we start feeling a shift in vibration in this community, if it can have a tangible effect. So now we as a community are committed to something greater than just our community. We're about something greater than just let's build the lighthouse, the Center for Spiritual Living, Moore Valley, so we're a big, abundant community. We're about something more than just numbers. We're about actually bringing heaven on earth to the Livermore Valley, that becomes a living reality, that we show up because we want to be an actual blessing through the words that we speak, through the energy that we are, to be a blessing to this valley. So I see that as a possibility for our community to step into, to be about something greater than just our community. So we're about our personal, individual waking up. And here's the beauty of all of this. God's so great. There's no way we can be praying about all this and not impacting our own life in all those dimensions and realities, financially, loved, feeling connected, food, shelter, all of those things. As we're praying out there, we're getting that benefit too. So as we're being in service to the greater community, we're being in service to this community, we're feeling the love and support of our little group of people who are hearing and can take care of our individual needs as we step along this journey, we become this miraculous community. That's what I believe we can do right now. Right now, we don't need anything to shift for us to make that commitment. I'm not going to ask, because I'm a reflector, I would never ask anyone to make that commitment immediately because it's a powerful commitment, but I am going to invite you to think about it and be with it and contemplate it. You get 1 week. Yeah, 1 week of reflection. But just, all right, well, but here's the thing. There might be some people who are ready, could say, I could commit to that now. There may be people next week who say, I can commit to that. But we're growing. People will want to commit as the year goes on. As you may not be ready to make a commitment like that. But if we could have a core group of people of this community, wanting God as a majority, it is not about numbers, it is about consciousness. It is about consciousness, it is about numbers. We bring that consciousness and that intention, whatever group of people who are saying, yes, this is what I want to commit to, we will become this incredible vortex of energy and light of heaven on earth, and that possibility is now, not in December, not when we have 100 members, not when we have a certain amount of money, not when we have this, that, or the other thing, but right now. It just takes our yes. That's all it takes is our yes. And because I'm serious about this, I don't want to ask for that yes now, because I do want people to really think about that and be with this and contemplate what would that mean, a commitment of a yes like that would mean to all of us, and know that it would support our own spiritual intentions and growth and expansion. I'm excited. We have our board retreat today. We're meeting for 4 hours at Paula Flagle's house, and we're going to be looking at our mission, purpose, and vision. And we're going to come up with our rough draft. And we were talking about it. It's not set in stone, that we're going to be starting this creative process, a group of us coming together to create our mission and purpose, but we're going to continue be evolving as a community. But we want our community to be something that's real, that's really here for something bigger than just our own personal needs and wants. It's what Wayne was reading today from our reading, which is to be love masters, we have to be about more than just me and myself. It has to be about something bigger, to be masters of love, power, and play. So are you willing to reflect on it? Reflection is still